And we continue now with Governor Sarah Palin. All right, you tell the story in the book about how you were selected. You were at the state fair. You got the phone call.
Yes.
And John McCain asking you to be his running mate.
He asked if I would come to Arizona and have a discussion with him about the possibility, and couldn't wait to get on an airplane and get to go meet with him again. I had met him months prior and was very excited about it. Had a great conversation with him. Honored, absolutely honored to have been asked to do the job with him.
Yeah, but prior to that, did you know you were being vetted? Did you know all that was going on?
You know what? I had gone through a lot of national interviews that summer regarding energy issues in Alaska and energy independence, some of the things that we were working on in Alaska to ramp up domestic supplies, and had been doing op-eds for national publications. A lot of national reporters had gone up there, and they would drop these kind of off-the-record comments about, hey, I hear your name, you know, you're being discussed. But I thought, such a far-fetched idea. I didn't put a whole lot of stock in what they were saying.
Did you imagine in this whole process that on the one hand you'd be so loved, on the other hand you'd have so many people that would be attacking you? Did you see that coming?
No, I was quite naive in terms of the anticipation. I think my family, too, was quite caught off guard. My administration, those who know me and my record and my accomplishments were quite taken aback by, right out of the chute, the criticism that began.
What was the hardest part? What was the worst attack for you? What was the worst moment as this process was unfolding? Who's Governor Palin and all the investigators racing up to Wasilla and, you know, to find out who you really were?
It was absolutely bizarre. We had, you know, there were plane loads of opposition researchers sent up there by the DNC and Obama's camp, and some in the media, running up there to find what they could find, any kind of dirt under my fingernails that they could report. I thought that they were going to find out that I got a D in a macroeconomics course back in college 22 years ago, and really, that is how, I guess, naive I was in terms of anticipating what was coming. I thought that was going to be the big skeleton in the closet.
What was the worst moment, for example? What do you think was the worst? Was it Letterman after? Was it at any point in the campaign? What do you think was the worst attack?
Two. One, in the campaign, my personal emails being hacked and then being broadcast around the world. That was quite devastating, because I knew of some of the personal conversations I had that were in some inbox, and I didn't know what was going to be out there. And the hacker, he admitted that he was looking for something to derail or destroy the McCain campaign. That caused a lot of disruption and even distrust within the campaign. That was unfortunate. But the most devastating attack on me were those things that would affect the kids. The attacks on Trigg, which still blow me away that anybody would be that cruel to think that you know, he shouldn't have been allowed to be born, or that he was this.
Or that he wasn't your child.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
that was another thing. It was really Bristol's child. I mean, there was a tabloid this weekend. I was in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You know, your pending divorce was in there.
Oh yeah,
you know,
that's
which you write about, and some of the other things. What did you think of the Letterman attack? Because we spent a lot of time talking about that. How hard was that?
It was another odd episode. I was asked to respond to the quote-unquote joke that he told about my 14-year-old daughter being being knocked up, he said, by Alex Rodriguez, and I thought quite inappropriate. But my response to a reporter who asked it, I hadn't heard the joke, and I said, well, that sounds, you know, tasteless, and it's not even funny. And from there were follow-up questions. Well, how do you feel about that kind of humor? And I said, well, it's sexist, and it exploits an innocent child. And I don't think it's cool. I don't think it's funny.
Would you ever have anything to do with him? Because you're a Christian. You want to forgive people.
Well, certainly. Forgiveness and vengeance isn't mine. I'm not out for vindication. But I'm thinking practically, economically, in terms of a David Letterman visit, I don't want to boost his ratings. So, no, I have no desire to.
What about the current edition of Newsweek? You once were in Runner's Magazine, and you write a lot in the book how you like to run, and you did a marathon. And they have this picture of you, and you put out a statement, and you said, hey, their approach is sexist. You had pretty hard comments. This just happened this week.
Right. Yeah, that was just so another unnecessary thing to put, take a shot of a health and fitness profile from many months ago and put that on the cover of Newsweek magazine. It was just another little shot. But in the grand scheme of things, of course, things like that really don't amount to a hill of beans when there are many things that are going wrong, something's going right, but something's going wrong in our country that people want to hear about and talk about. And I think that the American people, they're tiring of the tabloidization of some people like me, and they want to get to the issues.
The title comes from even your entire life when you were at the city council, when you were mayor, you described this, when you were governor, you took on the establishment, but also during the campaign. I was with you in Tampa when you mentioned, oh, by the way, these clothes were from a consignment shop. I was there, Elizabeth Hasselbeck was there. You asked by Carl Cameron about pulling out of Michigan, I think, and you said, I don't want to pull out of Michigan. And that was viewed by the campaign as going rogue. There was this conflict. You talk about it a lot in the book. What was going on?
Well, evidently there was a conflict, and there was some unforgiveness there, I guess, by some campaign operatives. When I would speak off the cuff and candidly and answer a reporter's question from the heart and from the gut, like, gosh, I don't want to have to leave Michigan. Let's give it the old college try and try to get some more votes there. So in speaking to reporters candidly, yes, I guess there was that accusation that I, in the VP side of the ticket, was going rogue, and you know, conveniently, it fits. It's a great book title and quite descriptive of much of my life.
You know what the question I had as I read the book, and I read it cover to cover, and I didn't miss a word, I thought, why, with all the conflicts that were going on that you described with the campaign, quote, headquarters, as you described them, why did you not reach out to Senator McCain at some point and say, this isn't working well for me with this staff? Why? Did you?
There was the description of some of the conflict within the campaign, because so many people have asked me about it, and so many people have said, why did the McCain-Palin message not resonate with the public? Because the issues that we were talking about and believing in are the right issues to be discussed in a campaign, and the planks and the platform that we were standing strong on are right to build America, but our message just wasn't being received. So many people have asked me about that. So I wrote about that, about the conflicts and the way kind of the machine works in a campaign. And 95% though of the campaign was absolutely amazing, awesome, invigorating, energizing. The people whom we met all along the trail were absolutely inspiring. And unfortunately, you know, not enough pages available in a book to get to describe all of that. But about the 5% of the conflict is in the book.
All right. And you have a good relationship with Senator McCain now?
A very good relationship,
okay.
Yes.
Look, Barack Obama, he's now president. He's been president, what, we're now in his 11th month. And what do you think overall of him? How would you, I think you gave a rating of 4 out of 10 in an interview.
Yes.
What do you think of him, though, as a person and as a president?
As a person, I think he's very charismatic, quite articulate, very, very talented as a politician. And he's been gifted in this arena, and I would like to see those gifts be put to better use to make solid, sound decisions for our country to put us back on the right track, because I think the decisions that he's making when it comes to the economy are not the right decisions for America. They will not shore up our economy. We're getting further and further away from free enterprise principles that certainly have built up our country and have assisted the small businesses that are the backbone of our economy. We're getting further and further away from that with the government expansion that we see, and I'd like to see him put all of those God-given talents that he is so full of to better use for America.
For example, if we look at the economy, let me just appoint you president right now, what would you be doing differently than the stimulus, the omnibus, and the spending and health care? What would you be doing differently?
You mean something differently than growing the federal government and digging us further and further into debt and being more and more beholden to foreign countries? Start ramping up domestic supplies of energy so we can be energy independent and more prosperous. That's one. Start cutting the jobs for the job creators so that our small businesses especially can start hiring more and reinvesting what it is that they earn and produce so that they can grow and prosper. And certainly there are so many things that are common sense principles that Ronald Reagan applied to get us out of the recession back in the early 80s. I'd like to see us revisit some of that history and apply those solutions.
Look, I follow this president every day. I think he's a socialist. Do you think he's a socialist?
I think that he certainly is ceding more and more power, and he's taking it away from the individual and from our small businesses, and he's empowering government, and that's a dangerous path for our country to be on.
He's taken over banks, financial institutions. They're dictating pay.
Auto
car
industry,
company,
right?
And
right.
now maybe the healthcare industry.
And
isn't that by definition socialism?
Energy industry too. I think the attempt will be next, and that's why Americans have got to pay attention. They've got to have their voices heard. They have got to remind our federal government that our expectation is that our government will work for us. We will not work for them. And all we're asking is that government be put back on our side.
All right, one of the things that we'll get to when we come back, you took a lot of heat for talking about the president's radical associations, but you would have liked to have gone further.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll get to that when we get back.